We're learning Maseches Moed Katan, Daf Yud Zayin. We're starting 2 lines from the bottom of Tes Zayin Amud Beis, just the last 2 lines there. And as you'll see, almost all of the 2 lines is just names. I don't say just in a minimal way, but as we start today's discussion, we're going to be discussing Nidui and Shamta, excommunication, still more. That's going to be the first blot, the first Amud. And the second Amud is going to be a brief sugya, trying to understand how one brisa contrasts with a Mishnah that we learned, and then we will call it a day. So let's get started. Tes Zayin Amud Beis, 2 lines from the bottom. Amar Reb Tanchum bered Reb Chia, Ish Kfar Akko, Amar Reb Yaakov bar Acha, Amar Rav Simlai. So it started with Reb Tanchum all the way back to the Rebbe of Rav Simlai. Ve'amrila, and some say it wasn't that many generations of conversation. Rather, Amar Reb Tanchum, Amar Rav Huna, only 2 generations. And some say Ve'amrila, just Amar Rav Huna l'chudei. He himself had said something. What did he say? So let's turn to the top of Yud Zayin Amud Aleph. Talmud shenida lichvodo, a Talmud. Meaning if there's a Rebbe and then there's the Talmud. So this Talmud puts somebody into excommunication. So the Talmud is Reuven, and he puts Shimon into excommunication. Talmud Shenida Lichvoda, who put Shimon into excommunication for his own kavod, Niduyo Nidui. The halacha is that is considered a valid shamta, a valid excommunication. How do we know? Tanya, we saw this brisa already, but now we're going to make a diuk on this brisa, one that we did not make yesterday. Menuda l'Rav, menuda l'Talmud. We know that if a Rav puts a Talmud into Shamta, into excommunication, most certainly all of his Talmidim have to keep to that Shamta and treat Shimon like an excommunicated person. Menuda l'Talmud, eina menuda l'Rav. But if a Talmud puts someone into excommunication, if Reuven the Talmud puts Reuven the Shimon into excommunication, so then eina menuda l'Rav. There, the Rav is not going to have to treat this person as Shimon as an excommunicated person, because it was only his Talmud that established it. Now, what's the diuk on this brisa? The third line, l'Rav hu de'eno menuda. Only as it relates to the Rebbe would Shimon not be in the category of excommunication. Halakule alma menuda, but to the rest of the world, yes, he would in fact be in communication. We therefore see that a Talmud has the power to put someone into excommunication for the entire world, with the only exception being the Rebbe of that particular Talmud of Shimon. Lemai, what crime did Shimon do? What was the construct of the crime that he did? Ibimile dishmaya, if he did something wrong, klape Hashem, meaning he was breaking halacha, he was being mechal shem shamayim befarhesia, ein chachma ve'ein tvuna ve'ein eitza leneged Hashem. There's nothing you can do for this guy. This is code word for saying this guy is in excommunication across the boards. If he's being mechal shem shamayim befarhesia, then HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to want him in chayrim for everyone, even for the Rav, not just for the Talmud. So it can't be that Shimon's crime was klape shmaya. Elalav, it must be l'chvod atzmo, that Reuven the Talmud was upset, and therefore he put Shimon into chayrim, into some type of shamta. And it was not for kvod shamayim, it was for kvod atzmo. And afal pikein, a person is still allowed to be put into chayrim for that way. 6 lines down. Amar Rav Yosef, tzurba mirabanan avidino lenafshe. A Rav is allowed to take matters into his own hands, b'milsa de psikale, when something is super clear to him. So some of the Rishonim discuss this as follows. Let's say that I know that the pen that you're using in your hand is mine. I'm 100% sure. No sveikos, nothing at all to talk about. It has my name on it. It's simanim, whatever. I can literally just take it out of you. I don't even have to go to Bezdin. I'm just allowed to take it. That's not a din Torah. Din Torah is when there's a lack of clarity. But if I know that it's my pen, you're holding a pen that has my name on it. That's my pen. I can take it without any Bezdin process. Next, and there was a Rav, the Havusanu Shomane. There was a negative rumor about him. Rashi here, for 3 lines down, she yotzin alav shmuos ros. He has a bad name. Some of the Rishonim specifically say that he had a bad name about him as it relates to arayos, with inappropriate illicit relationships. We'll see how this plays into the Gemara later with some hashgacha pratis of mida keneged mida. Amar Rav Yehuda says, hey chile avi, they're only rumors. What should I do? I don't know if I should put him into Shamta or not. If we say lishmete, that we should put him into Shamta, we should put him into excommunication, that's a problem. Tzriche le Rabbanan, he's a Talmud Chacham, he's a posek, whatever he is. Yes, there are rumors about him. It's problematic, very problematic, but nothing has been clarified yet. Tzriche le Rabbanan, we need him. But lo lishmete, if we don't say something about him, if we don't put him into Shamta, into excommunication, then kamischel shma d'shmaya, then the name of HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to be dragged through the mud. This person's a rabbi, is walking around with a kippah, and he has these inappropriate rumors about him going around. So maybe we should put him into Shamta. This was the question of the Gemara. Omar le Rabba bar Chana, midi shmiya lach beha. So they asked Rabba bar Chana, do you know what I should do? What should we do in a case where we hear rumors about a Rav, but the rumors are not confirmed? And if those rumors are not confirmed, then to put him into Shamta would be possibly too aggressive, but to not put him into Shamta might be a Chilul Hashem. So Amar Le, Hachi Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Bar Bar Chana says in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, what does the pasuk mean when it says, Kisiv Seikoin Yishameru, Das Vatori Yuvakshu Mipihu, Kimalach Hashem Tzevakosu? So the last part of the pasuk of Kimalach Hashem Tzevakos referencing a Rav. Im Dome Harav LaMalach Hashem, if the Rav is of the category where he's so erlich and so sincere and so from, and he does everything right, and he's Dome LaMalach Hashem Tzevakos, then beautiful, that's great. Then Yivakshu Torah Mipiv, then we can learn from him. However, V'im Lav, Al Yivakshu Torah Mipiv. But if he is not of caliber to be considered like a Malach Hashem Tzevakos, done, he's out. We should not learn Torah from him at all. And therefore, Shamte, Rabbi Yehuda put him into Cherem. So interesting. There's a suffix. We don't know what's going on. There's nothing guaranteed about this guy, but nevertheless, he was put into Cherem. He's Talmid Chacham because there are too many rumors about him. So, soon after that, Ichlish Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda became ill. Asir Rabbanan l'Shiyulei Bey. There were a lot of rabbis who came to visit him, and this guy was one of the rabbis. V'asa ihu nami bahadaihu. When the group of rabbis, this whole entourage of people, came to visit Rabbi Yehuda when he was sick, one of the rabbis who was there was this guy Shimon, who was put into Shamta, put into excommunication. Kadchazi Rabbi Yehuda. When Rabbi Yehuda saw him, chayich, a smirk came over his face. Omar Le, this guy Shimon, the person who was put into excommunication, says, Lo mistaich de shamte leu gavra. Isn't it enough that you already put me into cherem? Ela achuche nami chaychbi. You're also going to laugh at me when I walk in the room. That's not right. It's okay. You put me into cherem. Stop laughing at me. So Omar Le, Rabbi Yehuda says back to him, La b'didach mechaychana. I'm not laughing at you. Ela dechi azilna le'ahu alma. When I go into that world, he says when he passes away and Rabbi Yehuda is to go into the next world, V'dicha da'atoy, my knowledge, my brain is calm, my brain is comforted. De'afilu legavra kavasach, even for a person like you, you had stature in the community, but still lo chanifile, I didn't pander to you and not put you into cherem. You needed to be put into cherem, and I'm just happy that I was strong enough to do so. Finally, last short line on the page, it's Zayin Amud Aleph. Nachnach Shev Rabbi Yehuda, he finally did pass away. Also the Beit Medrasha, and this guy Shimon, who was put into excommunication, went to the Beis Medrash. Amar Luhu Sharuli, he says to them, please take me out of this excommunication. Amrulei Rabbanan, the rabbis in the Beis Medrash of Rabbi Yehuda said to him, Gaber the Chashiv Rabbi Yehuda, such a chashiv person like put you into Cherem. So Leika Hacha Delishrilach. There's no one here who could take you out of Cherem. We just don't have anyone as powerful. Elazil Gabed Rabbi Yehuda Nasiya Delishrilach. Go to Rabbi Yehuda Nasiya, the grandson of Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, and maybe he can help. Maybe he can take you out of excommunication. So this guy Shimon, who was put into excommunication by Rabbi Yehuda, went in front of Rabbi Yehuda Nasiya. Amar Le Rabbi Ami, and Rabbi Yehuda Nasiya said to Rabbi Ami, Pok iyun bedine. Please go look into the halacha about this guy. Go look into the sugya. Find out what happened. And imi boy lemishrele. If you're able to get him out of this cherem, then you should. Sharile, you should. So Ian Rabbi Yehuda bedine. Rabbi Ami bedine. Rabbi Ami looked into the din. Suffer lemishrele, and he was right about to take him out of excommunication. But right then, for the first time in many years, Rabbi Shmuel Bar Nachmani walked into the Beis Medrash. Amar Rabbi Shmuel Bar Nachmani al Ragla v'Amar u'mashif chashal Beis Rebbe lo noagu chachamim kalus rosh b'niduya shalosh shanim. Rabbi Shmuel Bar Nachmani says, just like the shifcha of Rebbe put someone into excommunication, and that person remained that way for 3 full years. Yehuda Chavereinu, Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi, who's greater than the shifcha, than the Amsa, the Bei Rebbe, than the shifcha of Rebbe. Alachas kama v'kama. You can't be so light, says Rav Shmuel Bar Nachmani. Amar Abzera Maida Kaman. Look what's happening in front of us. Look at this Hashgacha Pratis. The Asa Ha'idna Hai Saba Bevei Medrasha. The Hakama Shani Lo Asa. It's been many years since Rav Shmuel Bar Nachmani showed up. All of a sudden, he walked in right at this time. It must be Hashgacha Pratis that HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't want this guy to get out of his shamta, out of his excommunication. Halfway down 7 lines into the wide lines, Shema Mina, Lo Mi Boy Le Mishrele. So Lo Sharle. They finally decided, no, this guy cannot be let out of excommunication. Look at the Hashgacha Pratis of when he walked into the Beis Medrash. Shmuel Bar Nachmani said no dice. So no fact, this guy went out. Ki chabachi va'azil. He was crying and walking down the street. Asa Zibura, there was a wasp. V'tarke a'amse, and he got bit ba'osa makom, he got bit in b'makom abris, stung there, v'shachiv, and he died. Take a look at Tosfos, top Tosfos on the page, very short. V'tarke, he was bitten, nashcho a'amaso, he was bitten in b'makom habris. V'yesh meforshem mida keneged mida mishum de nechshad biznos. Wow. That what was happening was that he was being punished midah for midah, that he had done something, crossed some boundaries that led people to think that he was being inappropriate with women, and therefore this was his consequence. After he died, Ailuhu lima'arta de Chasidi. They wanted to bury him in a cave where the Chasidi, not Chasidish like we understand it. Chasidi, like there's a level of tzaddik, and then there's a chassid, one of the highest levels of people. Below kibluhu, he was not received. Some of the Rishonim write that he was stopped at the gates of this cave, of this section of the cemetery by a snake that would not allow him to enter. But that's not what the Gemara says. Just some of the Rishonim do say that. And then they put him in a section where all the Dayanim were buried, v'kibluhu, and there he was received. My taima. Why is it that he was well received? Because the avad k'Rabbi Loi. Because much as he might have done things wrong, it was never clear that he did something wrong. The Tanya, what does Rabbi Loi say? Rabbi Loi Omer, Imroa Adam Shitro Miskaber Alav. If a person has a tremendous temptation, one that they cannot control, so then Yelech Lamakom Shein Makirno. So go somewhere where nobody knows you. V'yilbash shechorim. Go wear clothes that are dark clothing. V'yisatif shechorim, and wrap yourself in dark clothing. V'yaseh mashali bochapetz. Break what rules you are anyways going to break, but better you shouldn't do it in the community. V'al yichal Shem Shamayim b'far hesya. At least be a mensch about it, right? Just do it in a way where you're not bringing down the whole structure. If you're a frum Jew, you walk around, you're doing something wrong in public, you're representing everybody. So you've got to be a mensch, and you have to make sure that you carry yourself properly. You have a yetzer hara that you can't control. That's a problem. So then at least do it in a way where you're not bringing down the whole house. What was the Shivcha Shel Beis Rabbi Mahi? What was that case where she put someone into Shamta? It says the Gemara, the maidservant of Rebbe saw that there was a man to have a Machi Libno Gadol. He was beating one of his older children, who was hitting him. Amra lehavehu gavra b'shamta. She calls out that man, the father who's hitting his son, he needs to be put into shamta. He's violating the din of lifnei iver lo sitein michshol. The Tanya, the Brisa writes, lifnei iver lo sitein michshol. What does the pasuk mean? The Brisa explains, b'maka livno gadol hakasu medaber. The pasuk, when it says lifnei iver lo sitein michshol, is speaking about a father who hits his older son. What is that son going to do when you hit him? He's either going to hit you back or curse at you, one of the two, both of which are Yisur D'Oraisa, and you let him to do that. So therefore, she put him into Cherem. Reish Lakish have a mintar pardisa. Reish Lakish was once watching over an orchard. Also, this guy walks over to one of these trees and pulls a couple of dates off the tree. Rama Bekali raised his voice. Don't take the food; it's not yours. Get out of here. Below Ashkach, the guy didn't listen. Omar, he calls out after him, Lehaviu Gavra B'Shamta, you need to be put into excommunication. Omar Lei, the guy looks back at him and says, Adarabba, you need to be put into Shamta. He says to Reish Lakish, Lehaviu, Adarabba, you need to be, Lehaviu Gavra B'Shamta, you should be put into Shamta. If I stole from you, so then I owe you money. Then Nidui Minis Chayavti Lach, who says that I actually should be into Nidui? That's a great argument. And says the Gemara, Asala Be Medrasha. So Reish Lakish didn't know the din. So Reish Lakish told this guy who stole, you should be in excommunication. The guy said, you're wrong. You should be in excommunication, Reish Lakish. Who was right? So Asala Be Medrasha Amar Le, and they said to him, Shelo Nidui. His words about you were effective, and you, Reish Lakish, are now Benidui. And Shalach, what you said to him was inappropriate, and Eino Nidui, and he is not Benidui. He stole something. He's not a good guy. He's a Russia maybe, but he doesn't deserve to be excommunicated. But he just has to pay tashlumin. Fine. So it says the Reish Lakish, Umay Takante, what should he do? What should I do? It says the Gemara, Zila legadbe delishrilach. Go back to the guy who stole and ask him for forgiveness from the excommunication in which he put you. It says Reish Lakish, Lo Yadanale. I don't even know who he is. He was a random guy just walking through the field. Relay. If that's the case, then Zila gabe nesia delishrilach. If that's the case, then you need to go to the Nasi. Why? The Tanya, 3/4 of the way down, 4 lines into the wide lines. The Tanya, the Brisa writes, if a person puts you into excommunication and you don't know who was the person who did it to you, then go to the Nasi of that time and he will help you get out of the Nidui. Next, Amar Rav Huna, Be'usha Hiskinu Av Bezdin Shesarach. If you have an Av Bezdin Shesarach that became spoiled, literally became spoiled, but it means he's struggling with his Judaism, to say the least. Ein Manadano. So the first time around, we don't put him into Nidui. Ela Omrim Lo Hachbeid B'Shei B'Veischa. Go hide out in your house. Chazar B'Sarach. If he returns to his bad habits, so then Manadano Somim Nechil Hashem. Then this guy needs to be put into excommunication because he is making a Chilul Hashem. You should not do that. Upliga, this is not so simple. Upliga the Reish Lakish, we don't necessarily put this person into an excommunication. We never do a public excommunication of this person. We cover him up at night. It doesn't mean we don't admit his crimes. What it means is that we don't put him into a formal excommunication. And similarly, when Mar Zutra Chasida, when he would put someone, a Rav, into Shamta, when he would put a Rav into excommunication, the Resha Mishamis Nafshe. Wow, look, this is Nosei Olim Chavero. First, Rabbi Zutra Chasida would put himself into nidui, into excommunication. V'hadar Mishamis Ladidei, and then the student. When he would get home, Shari Leila Nafshe, he would take himself out of Shamta, and then V'hadar Shari Ladidei, and then he would also release the student from his excommunication as well.
So a single person can take him out of excommunication.
Next line of the Gemara, like Michael says, Amar Rav Gidal Amar Rav, Talmid Chacham enad la'atzmo mefer la'atzmo. You can put yourself into a Shamta and take yourself out of a Shamta.
Oh yeah, I remember that last night.
Yeah, that was a little different though. Last night was Nazifa. Last night was fully self-imposed. This does seem to be different, that a Talmid Chacham can actually put himself into Shamta, and the rules are different because one is community-wide, which is this. Right. The other one is not. So no aliyahs, no shalom aleichem. You can self-impose as a Talmid Chacham that I need to put myself into Shamta. And someone says, I want to give you a shalom aleichem, and he says, I put myself in excommunication. It's different than Nazifa. So there are differences, but it's a similar idea. This is more dramatic, where you're putting yourself into a proper Shamta. Amar Papa, Teisili, I should get rewarded. Delos Shamiti Tzurba Rabbanim Me'olam. I never put a rub into Cherem. Says the Gemara, are you complimenting yourself or insulting yourself? What are you doing here? If somebody does need to be, but what are you going to do? Categorically, you never did it. That's only good if nobody ever deserved it. But if somebody deserved it, then you should have put him in excommunication. So what kind of compliment is this? Hey, what did you do? Says the Gemara, when we needed to give a Rav a consequence, we would sooner give him lashes than put him into Shamta. Wow, which one's worse? Says the Gemara, my Shamta, what does the word Shamta mean? So two approaches here. Amar Rav, shame misa. It gives you the name of death because it's a very public shaming of your name. Shmuel, Amar Shemama Yihya. It should be like desolation. You're completely alone. You're cut off from the community. Umahanya Bey Kitichya Benura. And there's a machlokes about how effective and how powerful this Shamta is. According to this approach, it's helpful, just like greasing the walls of an oven with fat would be helpful. And the Gemara assumes, or we don't understand the subculture that they had, but they would do that. It would absorb into the walls and it would be good for the whole thing and it would stay there forever. Well, Pliga the Reish Lakish says it's not like that. It's not like that. When a person's put in excommunication, it doesn't stay with you forever. Rather, just like when a person is put into Shamta, it affects all 248 limbs. It leaves all 248. Namely, there is no remnant of it that stays with you. And how does he learn this out, Reish Lakish? That it enters all 248 limbs, but also fully exits. How do we know that it enters your whole body? Because the pasuk says, and cherem begematria masayim v'arba'im u'shmonehu. That's how it enters the body. When a person has the Shamta leaving them, when their Shamta is over, and Rachem is begematria hachi also 248. Amar Rav Yosef, Shadi Shamta agnuvta de kalba. We're going to place a curse on the tail of a dog. What is that talking about? We'll see in a minute. And once the tail is put into excommunication, the rest will fall into place. Okay, what was the story? Dahu kalba, there was a dog. And he kept chewing on the shoes of the Rabbanim. This is not a new story. Dogs have been chewing on shoes forever. So they were chewing on all the shoes of the Rabbanim. And they didn't know who it was. So all the rabbis said, whoever is eating our shoes, they should be the Shamta v'Shamtule. And then what happened? There was a fire that lit on the dog's tail and he died. He burned. It was all consumed by the fire. Don't chew the rabbi's shoes. There was this very strong guy. Remember the language from Bava Metzia, called the Alim Gvar, whoever stronger, right? That's a language. Alma in Aramaic means strong. So he was messing around, bullying, whatever it was. And also Lekamed Rav Yosef. The Rav came to Rav Yosef. Amar le zil shamte. Yeah, you're allowed. You have every right. Like we saw at the very start of the page that a Talmud shenidu lichvodo nidu yonidu, that you're allowed to put someone into shamtu. He says, I would love to. Amar le mistafina mina. I'm 5'10", he's 6'10", and 350 pounds of muscle. Like there's no way that I'm not doing this. Amar le shkil pesicha. Psicha, put out a little petek about him, write a note. And he said, no, he'll kill me. So the Gemara says, fine. Now Rav Yosef gets out the Kabbalistic incantations and says, do the following. Amar le shakle achte bekado. Go take this petek that you're going to write and put it into a pitcher, top of your Zayin Amid base. Achte be kavre, put it near in the cemetery. The kari be alfe shipure be arba in yomin. And you're going to blow shofar 1,000 times over 40 days. Ozil avad hachi, he did this. Pakakada, at that time the pitcher exploded, umis alma, and the person died. Wow. Not exactly called the Bezdin, and that don't mess around with the Talmidim of Rav Yosef. My shifure, what's with the shofar? Says Zigmar Sheni Frein Mimenu. This helps to get payback, whatever that means. My Tavra, why did they do Tavra? What's Tavra? From the Tuf and Shin and Aramaic are interchangeable. Shavra, Shvarim. Do, right? Remember the three sounds. Why that one? Amar Yitzchak B'Reid Rav Yehuda, Tavre Bate Rami. What does that mean? Third line of Rashi. That this shofar can break down even the greatest of people, even the strongest of people. The Tanya, fifth line of the Gemara. That when the Chachamim put a negative look at someone, then that will cause for either death or destitution, one of the two. That's all for Shamta. We've learned quite a bit about excommunications. Let's learn one more sugya. We're going to be stopping 2 lines before the wide lines, and that will be a wrap until Sunday. So we have said that a person's allowed to get a haircut if their Nazir or Mitzora status ended on Chol HaMoed, then they can get a haircut. Is that true only if they mamish didn't have time? Like really, their tuma ended on holiday. Really, it ended 2 days before their Nazirs or their Mitzora status, but they just forgot to get a haircut. Amarle, Tanina, we have a brisa. It has to be that there wasn't time beforehand if they plan on getting a haircut. Avel haya lehem pnai. If there was an avel who had time, then asurim, that's not allowed. And nazir mitzora shahaya lehem tnai, that if you have a nazir or a mitzora, even if they had time beforehand to get a haircut and they didn't mutarim, they're for sure allowed to, because they can't bring their korbanos until they get their haircuts. And if they delay getting their haircuts, shlo yishu korbanos, we don't want there to be a scenario where they push off their korban too far. What does the brisa say? This is another brisa. Tana hakohen b'ha'avel mutarin b'giluach. But 3 lines ago, we just said avel that had the time is asurim. So now we have to answer the contrast of these this brisa and our Mishnah.
Does an avel become an avel during Chol HaMoed, or does he become an avel after Chol HaMoed, after the second day?
What?
Are you an avel if someone passes away during Chol HaMoed? Is I believe the question.
Well, there are halachos that pertain to you, yes, because especially in Chol HaMoed, you're allowed to bury someone, so for sure. I would ask the question a little differently, which is, are you in Avelus on the second set of, let's say on the final day of Yom Tov, are you in Avelus? Because you can't bury someone. So
well, it's like Shabbos.
It's like Shabbos. So technically, no, there is no Avelus on Shabbos. The Shabbos, you're not even an onain yet. You still fulfill mitzvos, I believe.
Right.
I believe so. You still make brachos, whatever it is. I'm pretty sure that's the case, but not 100% sure.
Not anytime soon.
Right. So Tana hakohen ba'avel mutarim begiluach. We have to figure out how this one line of hakohen ba'avel mutarim begiluach works out with our Mishnah. So says the Gemara. Let's go through both parts. Hi avel hechidami. What is the case of the avel? Ilema shechal shmini shelo be'erev haregel. If the 8th day from death, meaning he's no longer in shiva, if that falls out on Erev Regel, then that's when he should have gotten a haircut before the Chag, and he should not get one on Chol HaMoed. Ella, maybe the case is Shechal Shmini Shelo Lios B'Shabbos. Maybe the 8th day of his, meaning he's no longer in Shiva. It's now day 8. It was a Shabbos, which was Erev Regel. So the day before the Regel was Shabbos, and he couldn't get a haircut. So says the Gemara, if that's true, Erev Shabbos, then he should have gotten a haircut on day 7, not day 8, which was a Friday. To Amar Rav Chiz Amar Ravina Bar Shila, halacha ke'Abba Shaul. The halacha is like Abba Shaul. We don't know what this is talking about yet. Umodim chachamim la'Abba Shaul b'shechel shmini shelo liyos b'Shabbos erev regel shemot legalech b'erev Yom Tov b'erev Shabbos. Excuse me. So we see that in a case like that, he should have gotten a haircut beforehand, even if it's the 7th day of his Avelus. He still should have gotten that haircut prior to the Chag and not during Chol HaMoed. So then we're back to our question. What is the case of an Avel? So it says the Gemara, Lo Tzricha, rather it must be the case is Shechal Shvi Shelo Lios B'Shabbos Erev HaRegel. So here's the flow of events. The 7th day of, 7th and final day of his Avelus is on a Friday, and Yom Tov starts after Shabbos. So now what? It's not that Shabbos is the 8th day. It says Shabbos is the 7th day, and therefore Friday is the 6th day. So Tana B'Ra, the new brisa that we just saw today, Savar Laka Abba Shaul Domer Mixas Yom Kikulav Yom Hashvi Lo Lakan. Fine, he can get his haircut because that they only Mixas Yom Kikula. We paskin that way in Avelus as well. That's why on the 7th day of a person's Avelus, they daven Shachris, and then the whole Avelus is done. The Shiva at least is done. The Kevan the Shabbos have anusu, and therefore you can get a haircut during Chol HaMoed. But Tana Didan, the author of our Mishnah, Savar La Kirabana Damri, Lo Aminan Mixas Yom Kikulu, Ve'akati Lo Shalem Avelus Teshiva, and therefore he'd be able to. And therefore he should not get a haircut. Okay, his Avelus didn't end. What was the case of the Kohen? Hi Kohen Hechidami, because we had said in the Brisa that a Kohen is allowed to get a haircut. If he finished his mishmeres before the regel, so then he for sure should have gotten a haircut before the regel started. So says the Gemara, the case of the Kohen in the Brisa, lo tzricha, the shalim mishmarto biregel. His mishmar finished during the Chag. That was when his week ended. And Tana Didan, our Mishnah, which forbids getting a haircut, Savar, Kevan Ditznan Bishlosha Prakim Mishana, you call him Mishmar Shabbos Beimur HaRegalim L'Bechiluk Lechem Apanim. 3 times a year, your mishmar is really irrelevant because all Kohen are eligible for getting a murim body parts and for getting Lechem Apanim. Therefore, command lo shalim mishmar to beregel dami. It says if you didn't finish your mishmar, even though on paper you did, but because you have extra access to the emurim and the lechem apanim on Chag, therefore it's as if it didn't finish. The Tana B'Ra, the Tana of the Brisa, which writes that you are as a Kohen allowed to get a haircut. Savar afal gav d'shayich behanach mishmaros. Even though it's taka true that you have the privilege of a Kohen of having access to the emurim and lechem apanim during the Chag, even though it's not your mishmar, still mishmarte mi hashlim alei. His mishmar still finished, and therefore he can get a haircut. We're going to stop right here and pick up again Sunday night. Wishing you all a beautiful Shabbos. Bruchim to you.